And we're back.
Really have a conversation about the world that we want to create.
The world you want to create is not the world... It's the world you want to create in the Star Trek world, that's the whole point. Hopefully I'm applying that evenly. Hopefully across all things that I actually have interest in and things that I've watched in the past, that I've done that fairly. And if I haven't, that's a folly on me. What matters is the story you want to create. The story, the characters, the world in that universe. Because that universe is not this one. It may give us a glimpse of what is possible, but my question is, how are you approaching that? Because Alex Kurtzman came out and said, the point is not to promote Star Trek, but to promote Black Lives Matter and the NAACP, which are two specifically specifically colored people protective. Again, what about every other type of color? Like, I'm not associated with those things. Again, it's like, one, Black Lives Matter is a political association. It's a political group, an activist group that has a specific political agenda, trying to change the culture in a specific way. Well, there's been riots all over the country. Riots, not protests. Riots. People wanting to ban police officers. Like, remove them. Defund them. I don't believe in that. You need police officers, regardless. There needs to be reform, but you can't just do that. Fuck Black Lives Matter. It's not fuck black people, it's fuck the political affiliation, the association with that specific activity politically.
And how each of us has a responsibility to create it together. So I'm grateful for the history that Star Trek has created.
Yes, you've hijacked that Star Trek, which is unfortunate. I'm grateful for the old Star Trek, but where it's going is bullshit.
In terms of giving us something to aspire to, and so I hope that we continue that.
Good. I hope you do too. That's good. That's good. That's a good thing.
With season 3.
Let's be happy.
Something
I
I
think tradition. Oh, sorry. Go on,
I'm
Mary.
not going to interrupt Michelle Yeoh. Please go.
Oh my gosh, just talk.
Oh.
There's 12 of y'all. You're gonna interrupt each other every once in a while.
Okay, shall we? I just want to say
Just-
that tradition is just part of our DNA. And we just...
Okay, well, if tradition is part of your DNA, Chinese. Oh, that could be slightly racist, but it's funny. Okay. Okay, I'm probably going to hell for that one. Anyways, if tradition is an important part of the aspect of Star Trek, are you abiding by what has already been laid with the original Star Trek, or are you using creative freedoms to create your own Star Trek? Again, I love tradition, but let's create something new. Okay, good. I love tradition too. Are you keeping true to what has been in the past? For example, I love Spider-Man, Superman. Which one was it? Superman Prime? What am I thinking of? Oh my gosh! I gotta look it up. One moment. Okay, it was called All-Star Superman. I think, personally at least, that it is one of the greatest renditions of Superman who, spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't seen it, I'm not gonna spoil the ending because it's just phenomenal. But they do such a great job showcasing the magnificence of Superman and the character and universe within that show. They really do. It's hard to explain without giving anything away. I don't want to give anything away, actually. I was trying to think of, like, well, what would be a good story? Because if I say something at the very beginning, it sets it up for the very end, like the entire story, but that would ruin it for the very ending or something. It's great. It really is. And they carry the spirit of who Superman is. And they do their own thing, but they carry the spirit of it. Is Star Trek carrying the spirit of the original Star Trek? Or are they just doing their own creative freedoms and doing what they want? They say that they love the original Star Trek, but it doesn't seem like they actually care about the original Star Trek. That's just, yeah.
have to continue to strive together for what we believe in, for what is right. We know what is...
What we believe is right and wrong? Okay, that sounds like political activism, because what is right and wrong is subjective, is it not? That you could actually reason to determine that there are certain things that are objectively better or worse, not just things that we know are right and wrong? Like, I think that it is wrong to go against this, that we should have a standing army to go against someone. And it's like, you need to defund that. You need to defund the police. It's like, well, wait a second. What if there's a side that, in the original Star Trek, they would have done this, where is having a police force good? That there might be a necessity, a necessary evil, a necessity that overrides what I think is currently correct. That there's a good reason for that. That would be from how I understand Star Trek. As somebody who is just a layman who has almost no understanding of Star Trek beyond just what I've gathered over the years. Seeing some clips, seeing a few shows, a few episodes here and there. I respected that. The biggest scene that actually showcases that is when they were trying to determine whether or not Data was property of the military. I don't remember the USS Enterprise. I think that was just the ship, but whether or not Data was property or an individual, quote unquote, human who has autonomy. That was a very big episode. That was a very awesome scene. I think there were some points in there that was just a little bit off, but it was great to even just having that discussion. It really is. And that was 30 years ago. But they were discussing what is either right or wrong, but they were making good claims and specific points as to why one thing was either good or bad.
It's right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're just coming out and saying that you originally believed that Star Trek... I love the tradition of Star Trek, what it represented, what it was. But now let's go with what is the opposite of Star Trek and just say what we believe is right and wrong, rather than showcasing what may be right and might be wrong on both sides. To actually just analyze it and think critically about it.
And we have to do it together.
From what I understand, someone explained this to me, or I heard it from someone, is that Spock, Leonard, I always mispronounce his name, I always butcher his name, but Leonard Nimoy, the actor who played, who made Spock, who Spock is, he was given the guidelines that to play Spock is just to be somebody who's constantly curious about things, to be very analytical. That's awesome. It's fantastic. It's like that's the spirit of Spock. Keep that. You can roll with it, change it a little bit, but that's the spirit of who Spock is. Someone who is analytical. It doesn't mean he can't feel. It doesn't mean that he can't think in a different terms or maybe even be impulsive in one or two spots. But to be critically analyzing things on a constant basis. I thought that was amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And that's pretty much continuing that, just striving, and something that
Who are you?
I've been thinking about, my gratitude
She has a dot on her lip. It's weird.
for being a part of this franchise is that it's about the infinite combinations of diversity that our work.
It's not diversity. I thought equality, because you... Oh, they're nonsense words. Because diversity is not a strength unless we actually agree on fundamentals. Because you put a black man and a white man in the same room, do they agree on specific fundamental values? If not, they're going to go against each other. Which, again, that's the entire point is that we agree on a particular thing and we're going towards that thing. Diversity in itself is not an ultimate good, and it's something that's only supplementive when we actually agree on what is good, what is right. Gosh.
Work is never done, that there's still representation and visibility.
Representation, visibility. Oh my gosh, I want to be seen, guys.
Yet to be seen, and so
she even said
I'm
it.
really grateful to be a part of our franchise.
Oh, no.
Things that over and over again. And the work isn't done, but it's pretty exciting.
I think that one thing I value about specifically
Your hair is messy. Fix it.
our version of Star Trek is that we don't
Our version of Star Trek. You know, again, I love tradition. Our version of Star Trek. Yeah, you can have a version of Star Trek, but does it keep the spirit of the original Star Trek? It doesn't.
make assumptions that we've already reached perfection, that we allow that there's more to do within ourselves and within the utopia of the Federation.
Okay, if that has already been made, again, one of the things that they've sort of retconned the entire story is that there is nothing for them to actually... the entire point of Star Trek. I don't know how to process this. I'm trying to find words. Let's listen to her again, as much as I don't want to.
I think that one thing I value about specifically our version
of
Star Trek is that we don't make assumptions that we've already reached perfection.
We don't make the assumption that we've already reached perfection, that we have to change ourselves and the utopia that we think that we thought we created or something. That entire bullshit, if you really want to think about it, is that Picard, I think, once said in The Next Generations, is that the entire point of what's happening is that we've moved past all those, like, the monetization and monies and stuff, but what matters is that we focus on developing ourselves. But what they're doing is they're trying to change society first, which is incredibly of an SJW type of ideology. It really is. It's very good when you're trying to actually make good change, but is there evil within ourselves? Yes. Stop trying to change another person, change yourself. You improve yourself. Have an entire show where everyone else is racist around you, and the Starfleet command and everybody that's on board has certain principles, and there's a law on the ship that says that regardless of whatever your quote-unquote race, creed, color, nationality, or sex, whatever those specifically immutable trait and characteristics, or whatever the ideology is that we take it with the same approach as any other person. And using the specific word person. That if you're a Klingon, you have personality, you have personhood. So it's like if you can reason what makes personhood, and you can actually have an entire show based on that. You can do this correctly, Star Trek. You don't have to be fucking bitch boys. You don't have to be fucking horrible. All you have to do within your show is, again, I'm gonna say it again because that was actually a pretty good thought, is that have it where, if you really want to talk about that topic, go to have this Starfleet, or the Star Command, the ship, whatever you want to call it, the Enterprise, to go to another place, and the interactions they have with specific species and aliens, talk about those type of things. But on board, they don't care about your fucking sex, or gender, or skin color, or size, or height, or whatever. It does not matter, because what matters is your competence, your application, your purpose, your mission, why you do it. Those are the things that matters. More importantly, your ability to do it, because if you can't do it, why are you on the ship? you need to have a specific role that you are very competent in, and that's what matters. And you can have maybe a disproportionate amount, like even saying that the engineers that we have are specifically women, not because we care about women or anything, or that we don't like men. It's just we have an application that whoever is the best gets to be in that position. And more often than not, it is men. But again, men or women, here's a standard. If you can meet that standard, I don't care what your sex is. You can have an entire show, entire series based off that. If not a one-shot TV show, where you have like Star Trek, not Discovery, but Star Trek, not Prodigy, what would be a good name for it? Star Trek... the Unknown or something. Star Trek to the Unknown. Or Star Trek rehashing things. Oh man, I wish I was better at that. But the Star Trek, the Legendary Run. I'm just looking at a thing I've written on my whiteboard. That's the only thing I'm coming up with. Star Trek, the Logitech. The Logitech or something. Yeah, you could just have a show based off that. Where you could have in the very first episode, where it is this utopia on the show. It feels like Star Trek. It looks like Star Trek. It's like you have a lot of quote-unquote representation on the show. But what matters is how people are treating each other. And that's what Star Trek has been. You don't fix what ain't broke. You don't try to fix something that isn't broken, because if you try to fix something that is not broken, you might be breaking it beyond repair. You might be breaking it not realizing that you've broken it. And when you break it, you try to put it back together. And if you're trying to fix it because you thought it was broken, what do you think the original thing you're trying to build is? You'll just create something new or just replace it. That's what's happening with Star Trek. That sucks.
That we allow that there's more to do within ourselves and within
the Federation,
the utopia of the Federation and beyond.
Pausing it.
And I think that's a really important message to hear right now, because there are a lot of people who assume some of these issues are solved, and they're not.
Yes, I disagree that some of these positions that you hold are incorrect. And what you're doing right now with that presumption is that if you disagree with some of these things to be correct, you think some of these positions are wrong. Diversity is not an ultimate good. It's whatever you are thinking and feeling, and that's what matters. If there were a bunch of white people on the Enterprise, all of them were white, 100% males, 100% white. One, that would be a sausage fest. Two, what does that have anything to do with the competency or the values that matter on that thing? If you're judging, it's like, oh, there's so many white people. You're part of the problem! If you believe that if there's a bunch of white people on the Enterprise, and you think that's problematic, let's reverse it. There's a bunch of black people on the Enterprise. All women. A guy comes out and says, oh, that's problematic. You're part of the problem. You can have all black representation. Why are they on that show? Why do they have this? Is it a culture of women? Is it that the men are not being put in as second, but the women are just higher in application? Is it a species who has had women be more competent than men? That would be something worthy of discussing, worthy of exploring, because it's a different species. That again, as a species, it doesn't matter, because you can have, again, a guy come onto the show and says that I'm actually as competent as you guys, and all the women are saying no because you're a guy, get to the back of the line. And you could really showcase that, because that is something that no one ever sees, because we have all these tropes in our head that, oh, it's a male-dominated area, therefore a woman coming to power, that's a good thing. Wait a second. Just because you're a woman trying to climb the ranks doesn't mean that you're competent enough to even be there. And if you are there and you're not of the same sex and they discount you, well, why don't we create a show where you become the captain and it's like that again. It's been done so many times. Let's do the reverse. Again, I actually would enjoy a show where they actually created a captain. They could do this show correct, but if you think what's really wrong with this, what she was saying is that because you think I want to hear specifically
utopia of the Federation and beyond. And I think that's a really important message to hear right now, because there are a lot of people who assume some of these issues are solved.
If you believe that if the messages that they're trying to portray or what they believe is correct in society is wrong, you're part of the problem. Look at the guy on the right-hand side looking to the right with his eyes. Oh, I'm with you there.
And they're not. So I love that about our show, and I think it's important.
It's so amazing. It's amazing.
A lot about how to engage in my reality at this time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Mary. I want to piggyback and say...
Piggyback? Are you calling her fat? Please call her fat.
That I think a story like this, speaking of, or piggybacking on what everyone has said...
Yeah, she said piggybacking multiple times.
A story like this that can give us an example of what that future might look like.
Yes, I know, political activism.
I think it, at least I hope that it really holds us accountable.
Us accountable, or everyone else who's disagreeing with me accountable? Because if it holds you accountable, are you going to self-reflect and realize that if I start focusing on skin color, if another person focuses on skin color and looks at the world the exact same way, but through different, but cares about different particular activities, like, well, I care about black. There is an incredible wave on Instagram and Pinterest where someone posts themselves, specifically a black woman, or let's just say person of color, and they say, hashtag melanin, beautiful melanin, or it's like, I have melanin in my skin and I'm beautiful. Because the opposite of that would be a white woman coming out and saying, like, I have no melanin, I'm white, and I'm beautiful. It's like, what? That's weird. Okay, you're beautiful. Now, I would say, like, for a white woman, you're beautiful. Because there's certain white people who, like, because there's a lot of white women, I can look and, like, wow, okay, there's some white women that have some very comparable or very similar characteristics and traits. And I'd be like, wow, you look better than that woman. You look better than that woman. That woman looks incredibly ugly. That's one aspect. The other aspect is how you care about other people, how you treat people. Because some people are just born with genetic beauty. That's amazing. I applaud you for nothing that you had any control over. But how you treat other people, how you act, That is something that you can control. That is what is most important. And again, as a man, it's like, do I start? I don't even know. Like, I was gonna go down a rabbit hole with that one, but I don't even want to bring that up. Like, as a man, I'm happy when there's some attractive women on the show, and competent. Oh, that will just that will raise the flags, if you know what I mean.
And shows us, as Mary was just saying, that as both Marys were saying, that the work is not done.
Yeah, the work is never done because political activism, because fucking white people.
And that it's
I know that's not what they mean, but again, I think that's what they mean. I really do. Like, I don't think that any person on the show has any issue with whatever black people think. I'm using that as an example. And it's an unfortunate example, because what if black people actually think that there's some superiority within black skin color? Like, your melanin, like what Nick Cannon once said, that people who have melanin have soul. People who have melanin have compassion. He said that within the last week or two. That's incredibly racist, or speciesist, or whatever, skin colorist. But are they going to call that out? Like, it seems like, again, Black Lives Matter, if you disagree with that, it seems like there's more of an anti-white bias, and all the white men just shut up. But we go down that discussion rabbit hole when we start talking about, hey, you as a particular skin color, and maybe I'm even putting fodder into the problem. Maybe I'm the issue. You know what? I'd probably accept that as a possibility. Let's move on, because I'm sort of reaching unfamiliar territory. But maybe I'm just trying to find a problem for problem's sake. Maybe what I was talking about was wrong. You know what? I'm grateful for that. I'm gonna keep this end of the video. But it's okay to be wrong. Express it. Be wrong. Somebody points it out. Then you move on. Then you're done with it. So I'm so done with Star Trek.
about confronting ourselves and really confronting each other.
Confronting each other? I'm going to confront you right now. Why are you politically active on a show with Black Lives Matter specifically, and why are you not promoting White Lives Matter? Because white people, there you go, you're a part of the problem.
We see that in the
Again, I don't care either way. I'm not really a fan of political affiliations or political messages that are being inserted into the show so vehemently or into your face without actually being part of the actual universe in which you're creating. Like, there's some things if I don't even am aware of what you were trying to say in the show, and I just love the show, you did right. You did a good job. So, yeah.
this story within the legacy.
For example, V for Vendetta. It's all against the crazy white supremacist conservative party on the show, and the morally good people are the progressive liberals. That's what it was. But I can still watch it regardless of like the political association, because it's still the activity of a tyrant who's taken over, and people, and that group of people silencing you because of your political belief system or how you want to act or live or speak or behave. Again, there's a bunch of people in the world who believe that we should still shut down businesses because of COVID, but we should allow activists to be out there socializing and protesting their government, which I am all for that. But I'm also in the favor of you have the right to congregate with whoever you want. If you want to get sick with those people, go for it. If you want to smoke yourself to death, go for it. I don't care. I'm not paying for it. Go for it. If you want to eat yourself to death, go for it. I'm not paying for it. Go for it. If you want to have sex with 50,000 people, I don't care. Go for it. I'm not paying for anything. I'm not going to pay for that. And if you're going to say that I have to pay for it because you are trying to push the message within the culture that that what's morally good is we pay for everybody's health care. Like, okay, no. What responsibility do you have with your own body? Is that question not being talked about? It's not, because if you disagree with us, therefore you hate women's issues, women's topics. Go fuck yourself. That's the biggest issue as to why I have. There's some liberals that I love listening to. Adam Krigler on Timcast IRL. Adam Krigler, who he brought up the co-host on the Timcast IRL YouTube channel. He brought up a point when that NFL, I think it was NFL player, or I think it was NFL, I'm going to go with that. The NFL player who went into his own home or someplace, and he saw the string that was coming down from the garage door open, and he thought of it to be a noose. And That's ridiculous. But, and there were FBI agents, I think 11, that came down and actually investigated the entire thing, and it wasn't a hoax, but he really did think that. And one of the things is that Adam Krigler presented the idea of what it would be like to be someone like him in this day and age with what's going on with all the hysteria. And it was, everybody's making fun of that one guy who thought there was a lynching, or like somebody had a noose in his garage or something. He presented it in such a wonderful way. Like, I originally didn't care about that. Like, really, guy? Really? But you know what? As I don't ever have ever worried about that. There's nobody in my history I've ever seen that. You know, there probably was, but like, to be that person going through this thing in the current modern right now, and the current hysteria that's happening, it's like he might have saw it and actually believed that was actually happening. Not but because he wanted to go after somebody, but because he believed it was without any ill harm or something. And again, that was just so fascinating, the way that Adam was presenting it. But again, that's what I enjoy about listening to people that I disagree with. It's like, you and I, we both need to agree on 3 fundamental things. And I've said this multiple times to myself, and I usually say it on some of the videos, but I'll say it right now. There's 3 things that we have to fundamentally agree upon before we can do anything else as people. And it's not political, it's just truth within the world. 1, cause and effect reality. That's how we can do science. If you can't believe that, if you don't believe that there's an objective world in which we live in, even though we might be subjective creatures, that there's an objective world in which you live in, how you think, how you speak, how you act, how you behave, are all factors in the results that you get in your world. If you don't believe that, we're done. I don't know how to converse with you. I think you're retarded. But if we can agree on that, and then disagree with what things have caused what. That's the whole point about discovering. It's okay to be wrong. It's acceptable to be wrong. It's important to be wrong, but it's not good to believe that it's just subjective. Because if you believe that everything is subjective, you're part of the problem. You're poison. You're venom. You are a virus. The virus inside of you of what you believe is to be true. Once you change that, you change. So, but the second thing is that there is a moral system. There's a moral system in which to abide by. What that moral system is, why we believe in it, why are we supposed to behave that way, why is that good, why are those things bad, those are excellent questions. Some people believe that the universe was created 6,000 years ago, or the Earth was created 6,000 years ago. There's some people that believe it was created 1,000,000 years ago. There's some people that think that it was made 4 billion years ago. Okay? There's lots of people who disagree with that. There's a lot of people it's like, hey, smoking is good. Smoking is good. Having an abortion is good. Having an abortion is wrong. Why? Why are those things either good or bad? Well, let's go back to number 1, the cause and effect relationships within the world. If we need to accept that and then have that discussion. Number 2, we need to go towards what is good. What is that thing that is good? Well, let's go back to number 1, where we can actually use reason and evidence as to why those things are supportive, and so on and so forth. Number 3 is that responsibility is key. Individual responsibility and personal accountability. That groups of people, social dynamics, how we think, how we behave as people, a culture, what we believe to be normal, that's important. A responsibility on that level. As a society, as an American, as a countryman, if wherever you are from, that is what matters, is how you think and behave, and so on and so forth. There's levels of responsibility that a country has, that a government has, that a state has, that a family has. It's not just the individual, but it's also the group. But you have to believe that the individual has that level of responsibility. So if you're poor, if you start blaming the world around you, if you start blaming your society, if I start asking, well, what about your world? What have you done? What are your habits? What have you done for the last 24 hours? I want you to write it down verbatim. I want you for the next 2 weeks to write down every single activity you do. How much TV do you watch? How much YouTube do you watch? How much social media do you waste your time? How much of these things could you have improved, so on and so forth? And it's like, because if we go back to number 1, the cause and effect reality that causes results for you to happen, and then what is good and bad, because the law of comparison, if you have 2 things, you can compare them. Is one thing hotter or colder compared to another thing? Is one thing rougher or smoother compared to another thing? Is one thing beautiful or ugly in comparison? And from those comparisons, you can find out what is good and what is bad, what is better and what is worse. And then from that, we can go with, well, the responsibility to make those things happen because you have those actions that can make it work. Because your actions cause results, and what results are either good or bad, better or worse, and you have the responsibility to go back to number 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. It's just it's a loop. We have to agree upon that. We can disagree on how it is to be applied or what things in the universe are applicable to what and who is applicable to what. But if we don't even agree on those 3 things, there's nothing we can have an agreement on. There's nothing. If you don't believe that the individual has a responsibility, the child has no responsibility until a certain age. The difference between a child and adult is the level of responsibility that you have. And more importantly, the inherent nature that you are of a certain age have a specific amount of responsibility you need to uphold. That's truth. That has been, it's not even just something that has been upheld for hundreds of millenniums, hundreds of thousands of generations, but what matters is how applicable that is, how truthful it is. It's like you of a certain age are responsible, okay? You can be younger, you can be older, but there's certain level of responsibility that you inherently are to have. That's important. How much? You don't have to be responsible for everything. I'm not responsible for how my food is grown, but I'm responsible for the food that I consume. That's something I can control. That's what's important. So, oh man. So this video, man, I'm whew. That was something. Okay, let's move on to the next video.